I never thought the name sparking the most gossip about me wouldn't be David Beckham or fashion, but my own son and the woman he chose, Brooklyn and Nicola. People call me the perfect mum, the symbol of a flawless British family, but they don't see the silent tension, the sharp looks when Nicola enters, or that painful feeling of losing my boy. Have you ever loved your child so deeply that their love for someone else feels like betrayal, especially when that someone isn't your choice? Brooklyn, my eldest, stunned everyone with a 6-page Instagram rant accusing me of hijacking his 2022 wedding. Can you believe that? No one talks about the real story, the jealousy, the control, and how motherhood can twist under the spotlight. Once a Spice Girl, then the wife of David Beckham. But on March 4th, 1999, when I held Brooklyn for the first time, none of that mattered. I looked at him and thought, this is the one person who'll never leave me.
It was the hardest period for us because it felt like the world was against us. And here's the thing, we were against each other, if I'm being completely honest.
I faded from fame just to be by his side. Every photo shoot, every class, every tiny detail, I was there. I picked his clothes, the photo angles, even how he showed up in public. People called it control, but I called it love. I wasn't about to let the world eat him alive before he even grew up. Brooklyn lived in two worlds, his dad's football fame and my fashion-driven control. I couldn't give him the freedom other kids had, not after seeing how fame destroys families.
You know, up until Madrid, sometimes it felt like us against everybody else. But we were together, we were connected, we had each other. But when we were in Spain, it didn't really feel like we had each other either. And that's sad.
I told myself I'm protecting him. But by 2016, something shifted. He stopped asking for my advice. His look, his friends, even his appearances weren't mine to shape anymore. I tried to ignore it, but deep down I knew I was losing my grip. Then came 2019, and Nicola. I didn't even hear her name from him, but from the American press. Rich, confident, and powerful enough to stand on her own, no Beckham needed. I hadn't even met Nicola yet, but something in me felt off. Not jealousy, just a sense that I didn't belong in her world. When we finally met, it was all smiles and polite hugs, but silence says more than words ever could.
I can't even begin to tell you how hard it was and how it affected me.
I saw the way Brooklyn looked at her, the same look he once gave me as a kid, full of trust and needing approval. That's when it hit me. I wasn't his safe place anymore. I asked myself, when does a mother's love turn into fear of losing her own child? Over time, Brooklyn drifted away. More days in the US, fewer calls, family dinners fading out. I started watching his life unfold online, something the press later called obsession, but to me it was just how a mother stays connected when her son's world moves without her. One night in London, scrolling old photos of him clutching my hand backstage, I realized the painful truth. I'd spent so long protecting Brooklyn, I never prepared for the day he'd find someone else to protect him. When Brooklyn told me he was getting married, I smiled like everything was fine, but inside I was panicking. Not because of Nicola, but because marriage meant one truth I wasn't ready to face. I was no longer the center of my son's world.
It wasn't that I felt unheard because I chose to internalize a lot of it because I was always mindful of the focus that he needed.
People later called me controlling, manipulative, obsessed, but no one ever asked how it feels when the bond you built your whole life around starts slipping away. The wedding wasn't even close yet I already felt the loss creeping in. I'd walk through our perfect home, and for the first time, it felt hollow. I didn't hate Nicola, I feared her, feared she'd pulled Brooklyn into a world where my voice no longer mattered.
That fear made me act out, trying to hold on tighter, not realizing I was only pushing him further away. Love mixed with control turns toxic, I see that now, but back then I couldn't. I thought his wedding would bring us closer, nights spent planning, laughing like before, but instead it marked the quiet start of a battle, not between me and Nicola, but between a mother's past and her son's future. From the very start of wedding planning, I sensed something was off. Every detail seemed locked in before I could even ask a question.
There was some horrible stories that were difficult to deal with.
I remember sitting in my London living room, Brooklyn across from me, calm and mature, explaining how everything was already set, the date, the venue, the schedule. All I could think was, when did I stop being the first person he turned to? Then came the dress. I didn't demand or insist, I just said softly and respectfully that if Nicola wanted, I'd love to design her gown, not as a designer, but as her future mother-in-law. Nicola smiled, nodded politely, but said nothing else. Days went by, no sketches, no fittings, no talks between us. When I finally learned the dress had been chosen and it wasn't mine, I just stood in my studio, surrounded by untouched fabric, realizing I'd become just a spectator at my own son's wedding. Not because of the dress, but because I was no longer part of anything. The house stayed quiet, no arguments, no shouting, just silence that spoke louder than words. Brooklyn said he wanted a simple wedding, but I knew what that really meant. Simple meant I was no longer the center. The ceremony in Florida looked perfect, blue skies, shining sun, flawless smiles, but I felt like an extra in a story that used to be mine.
What is that relationship like, just walking around the house with them? Like, are they just the best?
They're really the best people, and I'm so excited Victoria's here tonight, and it means the world to me. She made my outfit, she customized this beautiful look, and I'm just like so happy to have her here tonight.
When Nicola appeared in her gown, the crowd erupted with applause. I clapped and smiled, but inside I felt it. The line between his past and his new life had been drawn. After the wedding, nothing went back to normal. Brooklyn called less, spoke less. Our talks turned to short updates, polite but distant. When I asked how he was, he said he was busy. When I stayed quiet, he did too. And that silence hurt more than any argument ever could. Slowly, I faced the truth. My son was building his own family, and I was not part of it anymore. I used to believe a mother's love couldn't break, but I was wrong. It fades, bit by bit, every time you're left out of the choices that once defined your bond. I started feeling scared to even call my own son. Nicola didn't need to argue or say a single word. Her confidence alone said it all. She was strong, independent, and made it clear that Brooklyn didn't need me like before. For a mother who'd built her whole world around family, that realization hit harder than any scandal ever could.
I don't hate Nicola, and I never wanted to lose Brooklyn, but somewhere between those two truths, I lost my balance. The more I tried to hold on, the faster he slipped away. That wedding, as beautiful as it was, marked the moment I knew my place in his life had changed forever. By mid-2022, I saw it clearly. This wasn't just a phase, it was a shift. One morning, I scrolled through my phone and froze. Brooklyn had posted a new tattoo, a long message for Nicola with one caption, "Forever." It wasn't just ink, it was a statement. After that, the distance grew. He showed up in photos with her family, dinners, vacations, celebrations, moments I never got to share. No more, "Mom, are you free?" Only silence, and the painful question I kept asking myself, when did I become a spectator in my own son's life? I kept trying to call him, short answers, polite tone, no warmth. The easy talks were gone, replaced by hesitation, like my questions were intrusions.
And when a mother starts fearing her own voice, that bond's already cracked. The real confrontation came one night in the US during a family gathering. I hadn't planned to speak up, but some emotions don't wait for timing, they just spill out. We were in the kitchen, soft lights, laughter echoing from the other room. I said quietly, "He doesn't call me anymore." Nicola turned, calm and firm. "Brooklyn is my husband. We're building our life." I replied, "I'm his mother." She paused, looked straight at me, and said words that cut deeper than any shout. "And now he has another family." No one screamed, but the silence afterward said everything. Brooklyn stood there, listening, saying nothing. No mom, no Nicola, just silence. And silence is a choice. From that day, everything changed. No more pretending, no more long calls. Brooklyn started showing where he stood, celebrating with her family, showing up in moments that used to belong to us. Each time, it felt like losing a piece of him all over again. A mother's love doesn't always win against marriage. I learned that the hard way. Once the glue that held the family together, I slowly became the tension no one wanted to name. I could feel it, the awkward quiet when I walked in, the glances shared behind my back. That silence hurt deeper than any insult ever could. One sleepless night, I sat in my studio surrounded by old photos, Brooklyn as a boy clutching my hand backstage, smiling like I was his whole world. I asked myself, when did my love turn into a burden? I don't hate Nicola, but since she arrived, I've been losing Brooklyn step by step. Then came his message, "I love you, Mom, but I need you to respect my life." It wasn't cruel, it was calm, final. Respect, in his words, meant stepping back, staying quiet, disappearing from the center. I've spent my whole life keeping this family close, and now I have to learn to let go. Not because I want to, but because if I don't, I'll lose my son completely. That night in the kitchen, under those warm lights, I finally understood I hadn't lost to Nicola, but to time itself. That's when it hit me. If I didn't change, if I couldn't let go, I'd destroy not just the bond with my daughter-in-law, but the very core of my motherhood. The silence around me grew heavier, not from fights, but from absence. The empty chairs said everything words couldn't. Moments where Brooklyn once sat beside me, birthdays, family dinners, celebrations, were now marked by that one missing seat. I'd hear his name whispered, never spoken directly, like a secret everyone already knew. Some nights I'd just stare at that chair, realizing absence had become its own language. No calls, no texts, just not showing up. Even David tried to hold things together, but I could see the fatigue in his eyes. The chatter about football and work still filled the air, but something vital was missing. Our family, once a tight team, now felt off balance. One player gone and the whole rhythm lost. At public events, cameras caught it all, not just who was there, but who wasn't. I'd smile through it, throat tight, wondering, will Brooklyn come today? He never did. And that's when I understood. No one pushed me aside. I stepped back, quietly, one frame at a time. Every time I told myself stepping back was the right thing, my heart screamed otherwise. That's when the cracks began to show, obsession disguised as concern. I started checking every post, every photo, every move, pretending it was care, when deep down it was fear, fear of being forgotten. When you spend years holding everything together, letting go doesn't feel freeing, it feels like falling. I'd become what I once criticized, someone trying to control through silence. No calls, no texts, no questions. I thought distance would make Brooklyn miss me, but silence doesn't heal. It only echoes loneliness. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, not fixing my hair, not dressing up, just facing the question I'd buried for years. Am I loving my son the way he needs or the way I need? The answer cut deep. My whole identity had been built around keeping everything perfect, the family, the image, the balance. but control, once my armor had become a blade, sharp, quiet, and cruel. Only then did I see how my love had crossed the line from protection to possession. I confused caring with interfering. I never meant harm, but good intentions can't erase damage. The signs were everywhere. Dinners with one seat missing, photos without Brooklyn, conversations that faded halfway through. Some nights the silence in my head was louder than any noise outside. I realized if I kept clinging, I'd make my worst fear come true, losing him completely. The hardest part was admitting I was part of the problem. I don't blame Nicola. She just said boundaries I hadn't noticed were needed. Boundaries only exist when someone feels the need to protect themselves. Maybe I'd stood too close for too long. The moment I admitted it wasn't dramatic. It happened quietly while sorting old photos. I found a photo of Brooklyn as a kid, hugging me tight, and I broke down, not because I missed him, but because I hadn't let him love me differently. I demanded to stay in the same place in his life, and that wasn't fair. So I wrote one message: I'm here if you need me. No advice, no guilt, just space. He didn't reply, but for the first time I felt peace, not because the distance disappeared, but because I finally stopped fighting it.
Acceptance, that's what it came down to. Acceptance that families evolve, that my place must shift with time, and that real love sometimes means stepping back instead of holding on. I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know this: if I keep fighting the present, I'll lose everything. But if I learn to let go the right way, maybe I'll keep the fragile thread that still ties me to my son. In August 2023, I flew to Los Angeles alone. No team, no schedule, just 3 quiet days. I stayed at Brooklyn and Nicola's home, a place where I'd always felt like a guest. This time, I promised myself not to take center stage. That first morning, around 6:30, sunlight poured through the kitchen windows. I made coffee, washing the cups like always. Then Nicola walked in, loose t-shirt, hair tied low, no makeup. For once, I didn't see her as my daughter-in-law, just as a woman living her life. We stood side by side. I asked softly, "How do you take your coffee?" She smiled, surprised. "Strong, no sugar." At 7:15 a.m., we sat at the wooden table. No cameras, no gossip, just 2 women finally talking about life. Nicola said quietly, "I was afraid if I didn't protect myself, I'd disappear." I listened and felt a sting of recognition. Her fear was once mine too. When I married into fame, I had that same feeling. So I finally admitted it out loud. I was afraid of being replaced. The words lingered in the air before she simply nodded. In that silence, I realized we weren't just 2 women who loved Brooklyn. We were 2 women afraid of losing ourselves. Later that afternoon, I texted Brooklyn, "Let's talk tonight, no arguments." At 8:10 p.m., we sat in the living room, phones away. I sat beside him and confessed, since the wedding, I've acted from fear. The calls, the questions, the silence that wasn't peace, but control. I apologized, not for forgiveness, but to finally end the cycle. Brooklyn listened and said softly, "I'm not leaving you. I just need you to trust me from a distance." We agreed on boundaries, when to talk, what to share, when to stay quiet. At 10:30, Nicola joined us, calm, respectful, no tension, just understanding. Before I left LA at 8 a.m. under the warm sun, Brooklyn hugged me and said, "You don't have to disappear, just stand in the right place." I got in the car, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I'd lost. I felt like I'd finally let go at the right time. In January 2024, I returned to London. Cold air, gray skies, wet streets, standing between 2 versions of myself, the woman who once controlled everything and the one learning that sometimes love means letting things unfold. Brooklyn and I had a clear agreement, specific, respectful, but I knew the real test would come in public, because in my family, public is never quiet. And that test came faster than expected. February 28th, light rain, a family dinner in London. Nothing formal, just a simple meal that suddenly felt like a stage. I arrived early and chose my seat, not at the center, but at the head, leaving space on purpose.
15 minutes later, the door opened. Brooklyn and Nicola walked in. The room froze. I stood up, calm, waiting, 2 steady breaths before smiling. Not for cameras, not for show, just to keep peace. Nicola hugged me, not too long, not too brief, just enough for both our hearts to finally settle. Dinner went smoothly, almost too smoothly, and that strange calm made me uneasy. I'd spent so long expecting drama that peace felt unfamiliar. But healing, I've learned, doesn't come with music or big moments. It hides in tiny gestures. Who pours the water? Who listens? Who lets silence stay soft instead of sharp? The next test came a month later, March 2024, under the spotlight again, a public event, the whole family invited. I knew every move would be dissected, every glance captured. Standing in front of the mirror, I whispered to myself, "Don't perform." I picked a simple outfit, not to disappear, but to finally breathe lighter. David walked beside me. Brooklyn and Nicola followed 3 steps behind, an unspoken balance. Cameras flashed like lightning, but I didn't turn or pose. We just walked, steady, calm, equal. When we stopped, I turned, waited, and they stepped forward. We stood together, not too close, not too distant, perfectly aligned. That night, at 10:40 p.m., my phone rang. Brooklyn's voice was warm. "You did really well, and for once, that was enough." I replied, "I just did what I promised." For once, his praise didn't make me cling. It made me let go a little more. But healing isn't smooth. It stumbles. In mid-April 2024, one small mistake nearly broke our peace. I sent a quick message asking about a weekend plan, forgetting the boundary we'd set. The text was read, no reply. 6 hours passed, then 12. My old habits kicked in, wanting to explain, delete, and fix it. But instead, I put the phone down and walked outside. I let the fear pass without chasing it. The next morning at 7:10, Nicola replied, "We need space for this plan." I simply wrote back, "I understand." No defense, no apology, just calm. Sitting in the kitchen with cold coffee, I realized I'd finally stopped fighting myself. By late May 2024, I was back in Los Angeles, same home, but with lighter air between us. Nicola asked me for a walk around 4:30, sunlight soft on the streets. We talked about work, pressure, and how it feels to live under everyone's gaze. No effort, no tension, just honesty. That evening, Brooklyn suggested dinner. No cameras, no show, just family again. I listened as Brooklyn talked about his plans. No advice this time, just gentle questions. How do you feel about that? What makes you feel calm? His answers came easier, and for once, I didn't chase hope. I saw real change. Then came a moment in June 2024 I'll never forget, a candid family photo, completely unplanned. Brooklyn stood between Nicola and me, not as a wall, but as a bridge. I didn't ask for the photo, didn't post it, just saved it quietly, knowing what it meant. By August, we had a short but honest talk. 9 p.m., living room light soft. Brooklyn said, "You might see us miss a few occasions." I replied, "I won't overthink it." Nicola nodded, and in that instant, I understood. Trust starts when you stop assuming the worst. Reconciliation didn't come with big speeches or dramatic hugs. It grew slowly through consistent actions that spoke louder than apologies. By the end of 2024, I saw the shift. I wasn't the center anymore. I was the anchor, steady, quiet, real. Now, in 2025, I can finally look at my family and feel peace, not loss.
Brooklyn and Nicola now live quietly in Los Angeles, far from the chaos my family once called normal. Not because they're hiding, but because they're finally building something of their own, and it took me years to truly respect that. They don't have children yet, and for the first time, I don't see that as an absence. Their generation doesn't chase timelines or expectations. They wait until they're ready, mentally, emotionally, professionally. I don't ask, I don't hint, and that silence has made our talks easier, softer. Brooklyn's work looks nothing like his father's. No stadium lights or crowds. He's exploring his own lane. Photography, cooking,
projects that feed his spirit, not headlines. I don't correct or compare anymore. I just ask, are you happy? And when he says yes, that's enough. Nicola is still acting and producing on her own terms, thoughtful, steady, protective of her peace. I used to see that as coldness, but now I see strength. She's guarding her space, her image, and her marriage, and instead of fearing that, I'm thankful. Those boundaries keep my son grounded in his world, not mine. Their life now moves quietly, fewer lights, fewer headlines, more peace. They choose dinners at home instead of crowded parties, weekend getaways instead of red carpets. They're not performing for anyone, and I finally learned that real happiness doesn't need an audience. If I had to describe our family's relationship now, I'd call it balanced. Not overly close, not distant, just right. We meet when it feels natural, talk when something matters, and give each other space when it doesn't. I once believed family meant everyone gathered around the same table. Now I know it's about not stepping on each other's peace. Sometimes Brooklyn texts me, "Are you okay, Mom?" I reply, "I'm okay. How about you?" Short, simple, enough. Nicola occasionally sends photos of Brooklyn's cooking. Not a grand gesture, just a quiet sign that we can share ordinary moments again. No dramatic posts, no forced reunions, just calm understanding. Our family now moves in different circles, no longer orbiting around one center. Brooklyn has his, Nicola has hers, and for the first time, I have mine, a life that doesn't depend on being just a mother. I work more now, create, take long walks, and I've learned to be okay not knowing every detail of my kids' lives. We appear together just enough for the world to see things are fine, but more importantly, for us to actually feel fine. No performance, no pressure, no proving anything. Empty chairs don't scare me anymore. Absence isn't rejection, it's just life happening on different schedules. If someone asked how Brooklyn's doing, I'd say he's fine in his own way. Not flawless, not flashy, but steady. He's got direction, a partner he loves, and a healthy distance from his roots, and honestly, that's a mother's real success. I don't dream of perfect family photos anymore. I dream of calm dinners, easy laughs, and questions that come from care, not control. Brooklyn's life doesn't need me at the center, just standing in the right place. It took me years to face this truth. The hardest part of motherhood isn't raising your child, it's learning to step back when they don't need you the same way. Love isn't about leading every step. Sometimes it's about quietly letting them walk alone. And when I finally saw it clearly, I faced the hardest choice: keep holding on or learn to let go at the right moment. Brooklyn didn't walk away from the family. He walked away from my expectations. Nicola didn't take my son from me. She just stepped into the space I once filled, protecting her marriage from the noise of the world. It took me years to understand. A mother doesn't lose when her child finds happiness in a different way. She only loses when love turns into control. I'm done proving I was right. Now I just want my kids to remember me as someone who learned how to make things right. My family doesn't look like those glossy old photos anymore. It's quieter, more real, and no longer ruled by fear. If you're watching this and it hits home, maybe you're a parent afraid of letting go, or a son or daughter fighting to breathe within your family. Remember this: families don't break from distance, they break when no one steps back. If you've ever had to choose between love and family, drop a heart. If you feared losing someone you love, leave a cloud. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment, because these stories remind us we're never truly alone.